Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Tonight we're going to be giving the this past Thursday night 9 days dirasha that almost happened but didn't. But tonight, Bezat Hashem, we're hoping to catch on an incredible et ratzon that we find on these days that are extremely unique. We'd like to be able to tell everyone that tomorrow night, from the few rabbis left in Brooklyn, tomorrow night, right after the reading of Echa and the Chinuch, we're going to be having the annual Tisha B'Av dirasha if Mashiach doesn't come. It's going to start tomorrow night at 9:45, right after Tefillah. So right after Mamash, right after Arbit, right after Chinuch. Everyone drops to the floor, we put out the lights, and we're giving it in the shul by us, in Magen Abraham, on East 9th, between Avenue T and U. There is no ladies section tomorrow night because there's just not the room, due to the fact that we're very careful with social distancing. So Bezat Hashem, the ladies we ask to watch at home. The men come join with us, pray with us. The Chinuch, if you're in Brooklyn tomorrow night, 2066 East 9th. And then right after that, that speech tomorrow night, Tisha B'Av speech will be live at 9:45. Bezat Hashem, we should be zocheh to be menachem each other and to be mitabel on the destruction of the Bet HaMikdash in Yerushalayim. Because those who are mitabel, those who feel the destruction, Borei Olam says, you didn't forget me. You didn't forget my pain. And because of that, I won't forget you. And when it comes to the Geulah, you will be the first online. You'll be in the front row. So with those words, broadcasting from Lakewood, New Jersey, from the office of one of my favorite Talmidim Gal, Shem, HaKadosh Baruch Hu Yishmereu v'Hayeu, Shem should give him nachat, Shalom Bayit, Beracha v'Atzlacha, Banim, Talmidei Chachamim, Bezat Hashem, in the zechut of what he's doing for his Rebbe. Ladies and gentlemen, let's start. Open a beracha. Kidarkenu b'Kodesh. Here we go. Baruch Ata Adonai Eloheinu Melech Ha'olam Shehakol Nihya Bidvaro. I'd like to start with a story. I began Thursday nights with this, and I'm going to try it again. Siyata Dishmaya. The story about two seminary girls on an Eged bus bound for Yerushalayim HaKodesh. So they're coming back to Jerusalem, sitting next to each other on the bus, they start talking. And the way the girls talk, they go into conversation. And one girl says to the other, did you hear? This girl Rachel, I know in the other speech I gave a different name, it doesn't matter. This girl Rachel, she finally got engaged. So the other girl says, no way. Mazel tov, mabruk. She wasn't young. She dated for years. That is so beautiful. To hear that an older single got engaged and Baruch Hashem, she's on her way to build Bayit Ne'eman B'Yisrael. Mazal tov, that's beautiful. So the other girl says, who's the guy? And then the girl answers back, oh, you know the guy. His name came up a few times. He was so-and-so. The girl says, what? That's who she's engaged to? Of course I heard that name many times. I can't believe she went for him. I mean, when the name came up to us, we totally rejected it. Because, didn't she hear? There's something with the family people don't exactly know about, something funny. And the guy himself, he's not really who he makes himself out to be. Didn't she look into it? Don't get me wrong, I'm happy for her. She's finally engaged. But come on, you waited that long. That's the guy she finally got engaged to? Didn't she know that, the people say about this guy, what he did in high school? And by the way, I just don't want to go into detail. But the guy has a past. And this girl starts ripping the chatan on and on and on. Just then, there's an older woman sitting in front of them on the bus. And the lady quickly turns around and looks at the two seminary girls in the eye. And she says to the girls, "Girls, you're not going to believe this. I mean, this is so min hashamayim. What are the chances? I can't believe. I mean, you're not going to believe me, but what are the chances? I've been here, sitting, listening to your conversation, and the Kala, Rachel, she's my niece. I'm her aunt. And I can't get over that min hashamayim. I was lucky enough to be on this bus, and Hashem placed me right here in front of the two of you to be able to hear that candid conversation. And now I finally got the straight up story about the guy she got engaged to, my niece. I mean, my gosh, you should know when we were looking into them, we weren't really getting a full picture. I mean, when we called his Rosh Shiva, when he called his rabbi, we felt that they weren't really giving us the full story. And we tried to find out, we tried to ask, but how much can you ask already? But now I'm sitting here, and you girls apparently did get the full story on the guy. I mean, I can't believe this. The first thing I'm going to do when I get back to Jerusalem, I'm going to break the engagement. I'm going to save my niece from a horrible situation. I mean, I can't believe she fell in with a guy like that the way you just described. This is so min hashamayim. Hashem put me here to hear what you were talking about, to get the real story about the Chatan, so that I could save my niece's future. Thank you, girls. You have no idea what the good you just did for me. The girls look at each other, and they say, whoa, what? You're Rachel's aunt? She says, yeah. You mean to tell me that you were listening to what we were saying? Every word. And don't worry, I won't let this guy get away with it. I will not let my niece's life be destroyed, a guy like that. Don't worry. When I get back to Jerusalem, I'm breaking it. The girl says, no, please, don't break it. Don't break the shidduch. Rachel, she's not young. I mean, she waited a long time. I mean, but that's not the point. The point is that what we said we didn't really mean, and most of what we said was really hearsay, and we didn't have all the details, and the truth of the matter is, it's not really substantial. I mean, we don't have any real hard facts. We were just talking, we might have exaggerated a little bit. That's the truth. We might have exaggerated a little bit, just a little bit, and don't take it seriously. And the truth is, we heard some good stuff about the guy as well. The truth is that, there is some good to say about him, and we were kind of getting to that. We were getting there. So please, he is a good guy. And you know what? Come to think of it now, I know Rachel. She goes along good with this type of a guy. Please, don't break it. So the aunt turns around and says, listen, girls, I understand that you don't want it on your shoulders, that because of you, somebody's shidduch is broken. I get it. But between me and you, I will not sit by and let someone destroy my niece's life. So I won't say it over in your name. I won't even ask you your names. But between me and you, we both understand I got to break this shidduch. So when I get back to Jerusalem quietly, the first thing, I'll call up my sister, and I'm going to break the shidduch immediately. I won't say a word of where I heard the information from. The girl said, no, please. Don't break it. I mean, we don't really know what we were talking about. We were just saying what we heard. It's hearsay. But don't break it on hearsay. Let's first look into it. And really, we heard good stuff about the guy as well. We were exaggerating. Please, I'm begging you, don't break the shidduch. She's a good girl. He's a good guy. Please, just totally let go what you heard. Just then, the bus pulls into Jerusalem. And the woman stands up and turns back to the girls and says, okay, girls, relax. I'm not going to break the shidduch. Because in truth, I'm not Rachel's aunt. But I could have been. I could have been. baseless hatred. You have no idea the weight of the words that come out of our mouth. And like the woman said, this Rabbanit, very smart woman, taught those two girls a lesson for life. You go off talking that way, who knows who's listening? If that would have been the aunt, that shidduch would have been trashed. It would have been broken forever. You would have destroyed the lives of two people on hearsay, on information that's worth nothing. Just chatter, just talk, just heke. Sinat hinam. This is baseless hatred. And until this ends, this galut will not. Because this is the reason why we're still here. Does it make sense to you? We have so many chesed organizations. We have so much mitzvot. We have so many people learning Torah today. It's off the charts, the Torah revolution. You go to Lakewood, 25,000 guys in 5 different Batei Midrash spread across the city. The Mir Yeshiva in Brooklyn, Tarvadat, Chaim Berlin. You go to Eretz Yisrael, the Mir Yeshiva in Israel, thousands of guys. You go to Bnei Brak, Panovich, thousands of guys. We have more guys today learning than ever before. There's so much Torah in the world. There's so much chesed in the world. There's so much tzedakah. We have today a gemach for paper clips. Did you hear me? We have a gemach for paper clips. There isn't a thing that exists on the planet that we don't have a gemilut chasadim fund for everything. And yet, we're still in galut. How do you explain that? It's almost 2,000 years. Wouldn't you expect that we would have been out of here by now? And the answer is yes. We have a Torah revolution like never before. We have chesed off the charts. Tzedakah we give like nobody gives. Like nobody. No question. Gemach ad lashamayim. And we're still in galut because the baseless hatred is still here. And there's still machloket. And there's still lashon hara. And there's still rechilut. And the reasons for the entry of this galut is still here, and until they're fixed, the exit will not appear. This is what Chazal tells us again and again and again. And I believe that this is the reason why Parashat Devarim is always the parasha that falls out right before Tisha B'Av. And the simple reason is because Devarim is a Musar Sefer. Devarim is the Musar that Moshe Rabbeinu gets up right before he dies, and he gives rebuke and Musar to the Jewish people. The entire book of Devarim, it's a summary, it's a recap of all the lessons, the do's and the don'ts of what we learned in the past and how we prepare for the future. Says the Vilna Gaon, what is the first lesson of Musar that Sefer Devarim begins? The first pasuk of the parasha of Devarim. Remember, this is the first Musar that Moshe Rabbeinu is giving the Jewish people right before he dies. You would expect that he opens with a big one. Matter of fact, he opened with the biggest one ever. You know what the first lesson of Musar? Says the Gaon, Ele hadivarim asher diber Moshe el kol bnei Yisrael. The first lesson, asher diber Moshe, that Moshe Rabbeinu gave the people, the first Musar Shmuz. You know what it was? Here it is, 3 words. El kol bnei Yisrael. 4 words. El kol bnei Yisrael. It should have said, Asher diber Moshe el bnei Yisrael. No. El kol bnei Yisrael. That's the first lesson. The first lesson is you need kol bnei Yisrael. You need kulam biyachad. If we don't have an achdut, If we can't get together, if there's division, if there's machloket, if there's different sections in Klal Yisrael, and this guy is not like me and I'm not like him, and that's not our way, and he's different, and we hold something else, and this is not our system, and we don't hold it at, and we don't care for that, and he's different, and we totally don't, sync with those type of people. If we're still talking this rhetoric, and we didn't come to the realization that until there's El Kol B'nei Yisrael, there's no Geula. Says Moshe Rabbeinu, I'm going to open up with the biggest lesson the Jewish people need to hear. So he starts with the bomb. This is the first Musar Shmuz. Says Moshe, you get this one right, oh boy, you'll save yourself all the tzarot in the world. Because if you could do just the first lesson, what I'm about to tell you, right before I pass away, when you come into Israel, Bet HaMikdash won't be destroyed, you won't go into Galut, you'll come to a Mashiach, all you got to do is the lesson. El Kol B'nei Yisrael. Kulam B'yachad. Shalom. Shlemut. Achdut. But if you don't have that lesson, you don't have nothing. And you can have all the Torah. You can have a revolution of Torah. You could have thousands of guys learning. You could have Torah programs in the morning, and you could have full Batei Knesiot at night. You could have Gemach, Tzedakah, every type of Chesed organization that ever existed. From Chai Lifeline to every type of Gemach, you name it, and still, you're in Galut. Says Moshe Rabbeinu, you want to know why? Because you did not learn the elementary lesson that Klal Yisrael keeps slipping up on. From the moment that Yosef was sold by his brothers down to Egypt, the original Galut, the mother of all future problems, and Galuyot, this story is going to repeat itself again and again and again and again until we can get this lesson straight. Says the Gaon, that's the first Musar Shmuz of the book of Devarim, and that's why Devarim is always the week, the Shabbat before Tisha B'Av. To remind us, you want to know why you're still celebrating a Tisha B'Av this year? Because the first lesson we still didn't get. El Kol B'nei Yisrael. Where did Moshe Rabbeinu get this idea from? That this should be the first Musar lesson that the Jewish people should get more than anything else. It's amazing. He didn't start with the Egel. I would have expected that one. He didn't start with the Meraglim. No, he didn't do that either, although that's what brought on Tisha B'Av. No. He started with the lesson that is the mother of all problems in Klal Yisrael. El Kol B'nei Yisrael. Because everything else doesn't come to this unbelievable lesson. Where did Moshe Rabbeinu get this idea that the first lesson you teach the Jewish people is the lesson of Shalom, Achdut, and no Sinat Chinam? Where did he get it from? And I think it's very simple. Take a look. He took it from the greatest of the Avot HaKdoshim, Yaakov Avinu, the Bechir HaAvot. Yaakov Avinu at the end of his life, Parashat Vayechi. Yaakov Avinu tells all his sons, he brings them all together in Egypt, and he tells them the legendary words, He'asfu, v'agid alachem ha'yikre ba'acharit hayamim. Gather around together, and come, I will reveal to you the Ketz, the coming of Mashiach. Says Rashi, Bikesh Yaakov Avinu. Yaakov Avinu wanted to give away the greatest secret of history. And what happened? Nistalka HaShechina. The Shechina left him. And no longer was he able to do it. And instead, he switched the subject to something else. And he went on, instead, to giving the berachot to his sons. That's what we call Birkat Yaakov Avinu. Parashat Vayechi. See, that's the way Rashi learns. The Baal HaTurim doesn't learn that way. The Baal HaTurim says, Bikesh Yaakov Avinu. Yaakov Avinu wanted to be Megaleh, the coming of Mashiach, in the open. But then the Shekhinah left. And Yaakov was only megaleh the coming of the Shchiach, of Mashiach, in the hidden, as a remez. Instead of actually saying it out in the open, he only hinted to when Mashiach's going to come. Where's the hint? Wow, where's the hint? What's the hint? Says the Baal Turim, it's right there in the Pasuk. He'asfu. That's the hint. When Klal Yisrael all gathers together, and there's an achdut between them, and there's a shalom between them, that they finally got rid of the machloket, they finally got rid of all the sinat chinam, the baseless hatred, and they stopped trashing each other, and they stopped talking about each other. And the Shabbat table doesn't sound like the up and coming of politics that's going on in the community. And this guy that lost everything, and that guy that just made a killing, and this guy that bought a building, and you know who's getting divorced? And I have all the dirty details. When we can finally give this stuff up, and we can actually become bigger people, and realize that we can rise to who we were meant to be, a nation, ki ish echad ubelev echad, with a real shalemut, that's the moment that we found he'asfu. That's acharit hayamim, says Yaakov Avinu. That's the moment Mashiach will come. So take a look. Yaakov Avinu gathers all his sons together in Egypt on his deathbed. And what's the first message he gives his sons? Before he says anything else, he talks about the achdut and the shalom, getting rid of baseless hatred. And that is the biggest and first message of all. After that, he gave them all the berachot. Says Moshe Rabbeinu, if that's what Yaakov Avinu did on his deathbed, as his parting first message of Musar to his children, if that's what he said to the Shivteka, I'm going to do the same. Comes the book of Devarim, Moshe Rabbeinu starts his Musar right before he's going to pass away. And what's his first message? The message of Yaakov Avinu. He'asfu el kol bnei Yisrael. Wow. The Gaon. And now I think we understand a beautiful answer that Rashi, believe it or not, Rashi asks here. Says Rashi, where did Moshe Rabbeinu get this big idea that he should actually give Musar right before he dies? Where did Moshe Rabbeinu come up with this ra'ayon? That right before a person passes away, he gathers the whole family together, Klal Yisrael together, and now's the right time to give Musar to the people. Where did he get this? Where's the Makor? Where did he get this concept from? Says Rashi, you know where he got it from? Yaakov Avinu. Makes sense now. Just like Yaakov gathered the children together, gave them Musar on his deathbed, Moshe decided to do the same right before he dies. But then Rashi says something that to me is mind-blowing. This is mind-boggling. And I'm telling you, Kedai, if you have a few minutes, to open up the book, take a look at Parashat Devarim, take a look right in the beginning in Pasuk Gimel. I'm going to read it to you now, but to see these words inside is a different experience, because when I first read this Rashi, I didn't know what to do with myself. I was literally jumping up and down. This Rashi is a message that we've been giving in classes for decades. And Rashi says it in the most perfect and concise and precise, sweet way to deliver such a big message. Listen to this Rashi. Rabotai, open your hearts. This is it. This is the big one. Says Rashi, I'm going to read it with you. He says like this. Vayehi, Pasuk Gimel, Vayehi ba'arba'im shana, ba'ashte asar chodesh, be'echad lachodesh. Says Rashi, Milamed, we learn out from here, shelo hochichan ela samuch lemita. Moshe Rabbeinu only gave the Jewish people Musar right before he was about to die. Not during the lifetime. Not in his younger years. Not in Egypt. Not in the Midbar. 40 years. He taught them Torah, but he didn't give them Musar. Only right before he was about to die. Mimi lamad, says Rashi. Who did he learn this from? Where did he get this concept? Answers Rashi, Mi Yaakov Avinu. He learned it from Yaakov. Yaakov did the same. Says Rashi, Yaakov Avinu shelo hochiach et banav ela samuch lemita. Yaakov Avinu only gave musar to his children on his deathbed, right before he was about to die. Amar, now open your hearts, you're about to hear a life-changing Rashi. Listen to me. This Rashi like this doesn't come every day. Every Rashi is brilliant, but this one is beyond words. Amar, says Rashi, Yaakov Avinu said right before he was about to die, Reuven beni, Reuven my son, my bechor, ani omer lecha, mipnei ma lo hochachticha kol hashanim halalu. Reuven, you know what you did. You know that you switched the beds. You switched the beds out of the tent of Yaakov Avinu, the beds of the imahot, and it wasn't Stam switching the beds. But because he switched the beds, he ended up switching around the birthplaces of the Shvatim. Because that night when he switched the bed out, and he put his mother's bed instead, his mother conceived Yisachar. Chamor Garem. B'diuk. Unbelievable. So not only did he switch the beds, but he ended up, because of that, adding a shevet to his mother's lineup outside and over Rachel. Besides the fact that it was very brazen to go and switch the beds, it was a davar that wasn't beseder. We'll just leave it at that. To switch the beds out of your father's tent, of which mother is to be there that night. That's not a simple thing to begin with. Says Yaakov Avinu, Amar, listen guys, listen to this. Reuven beni, ani omer lecha, mipnei ma lo hochachticha kol hashanim halalu. How come all these years I did not chastise you? I did not give you musar. I didn't yell at you for the terrible thing you did that you switched the beds. I didn't say a word to you. You know why? Says Yaakov Avinu to Reuven, Kedeh, Shalo tanicheni. I was scared that you might leave me. V'telech, and you might go off. V'tidbak be'esav ahi. I was scared that if I would have given you musar when you were young, when you did the big mistake that you did, switching the beds, if I would have given you musar, if I would have criticized you, I would have lost you. You would have ran off. You would have taken the yarmulke and boom, you would have went off with your uncle Esav. You would have attached yourself to him. God forbid you would have went to Tarbut Ra'ah with Esav Harasha. And because of that, all these years I did not say a word. I waited until the end of my life, where now you're much older and wiser and mature and able on the last minutes of life to understand that the musar that I'm going to give you is only something that is going to correct for the future, that you won't be so quick to react as you did that time with the switching of the beds. Did you hear this, Rashi? Don't believe me. Please. Look it up. Read the Rashi inside. I just did. Did you hear what Rashi just said? Rashi said that Yaakov Avinu says to Reuven, Reuven bechori ata, kochi v'reshit oni, yeter se'et v'yeter az. Do you understand who he's talking to? He's talking to the bechor, the oldest of the Shivtei Ka. And you know what Yaakov Avinu says? When you did the terrible mistake that you did, I couldn't criticize you. I couldn't give you musar. I was scared I might lose you. Psst. Yaakov, Reuven is a tzaddik yisod olam. Reuven has perfect yirat shamayim. Reuven is the first and the oldest of Shivtei Ka. You yourself, Yaakov Avinu, when you gave the blessings to Ephraim and Menashe, and you inaugurated them and brought them into the Shvatim, who did you compare them to? You told them that they're as precious to you as Kiruven v'Shimon yiyu li. That means that Reuven and Shimon was on the top of the ladder of the Shivtei Ka. And yet that same tzaddik, that same perfect Reuven, you were worried that if you criticized him, you might lose him to Esav? Yeah. Even Reuven, even such a great son, but you have no idea how criticism weighs on people, how it pulls them away from the people that love them, because somehow or other the message didn't come over as love. It came over only as criticism. And it weighs them down, and it weighs them down, and it weighs them down. To the extent that they hit a point that they shut off the volume. That's it. And now, the people in their life that became criticizers, all they hear is hamana, 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 hamana. In their brain, when the parent is on the kid again, how come you did this? And how come you couldn't do it right? And how come you got this mark? And how come you can't sit up straight? And how come you didn't eat? And how come, 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 and how come? And the kid right now in his brain is hearing la 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 la. He's totally out. I'm done. Just wait for that moment. Just give me the shot. Give me that day. Then I'm out of here. And hoo-hoo, I'm out of here. I can't deal with this. People don't realize how criticism weighs on a relationship, on our children, on our spouses. Constant criticism. It comes to a point where they're up to here. They can't hear anymore. They're not even hearing you anymore. You could have the greatest points in the world, but it ain't going nowhere. It's not even going in. They shut down the volume on you long ago because now in their brain you're a criticizer. You're not a friend, you're an enemy. You're on the outside. They snapped the cord, they broke the bridge. There's oceans between us now. I don't even hear you, Ma. I don't even hear you, Dad. I don't even hear you, Rebbe. I don't even hear you, honey. Relationships are not built on criticism. Matter of fact, they're way down and they're destroyed. And it causes people to pull away from you. Matter of fact, it does the opposite. You think you're instructing them to the right way? They just get boiled up inside and they want to go out lahachis, just to do the wrong way, just to show I'm done. We have so many teens at risk today. We have so many marriages that fell apart. And there were so many good meaning people who really felt they were doing good. Really felt, what do you mean? But all I said was, that's where it starts. But all I said was, but what, I shouldn't say anything? What, I shouldn't say anything? Of course you should say. But let me give you the secret. Rabbi Yaakov Kaminetsky. Yaakov Kamenetsky, Zechet Tzadik L'Bracha, the Rosh HaYeshiva of Torah V'Da'at. You know, when I was growing up, in America there was the Twin Towers. Not the ones from 9/11. I'm talking about the Twin Towers of the American Gedolim of Klal Yisrael. When I grew up in Flatbush, there was Rav Moshe Rabbi Yaakov. That's it. Everything in Klal Yisrael was Rav Moshe Feinstein, Rabbi Yaakov Kamenetsky, period. They were the two Twin Towers of Klal Yisrael in Flatbush for sure. Every time there was an asifa, anytime there was an event, anytime there was some sort of a big gathering, Siyum Hashas. I remember as a little kid, Tvar Salim Melech took us to Siyum Hashas in the Felt Forum in Madison Square Garden, not even in the garden, in the Felt Forum, that's the smaller. Rabbi Yaakov Kamenetsky, Rav Moshe Feinstein was there on the days. I remember as a little boy. I was in 8th grade. Things you remember as a kid. Rabbi Yaakov Kamenetsky one time, Rabotai, open your hearts, this is a key of life. Rabbi Yaakov Kamenetsky one time He had a student, he had a Talmud over by his house, and one of Rabbi Yaakov's sons, it's funny because later on, when I went to Yeshivat Itri, so Rav Kaminetsky was my Chavrusa second Seder for almost a year and a half. That was, Baruch Hashem, I was zochet to learn with Rabbi Yaakov's oldest son. Anyways, Rabbi Yaakov Kaminetsky. Rabbi Yaakov Kaminetsky had a Talmud of his over in the house, and one of Rabbi Yaakov's young sons, he was a little boy at the time, only a few years old, Rabbi Yaakov's son was climbing up on the dining room table, and he was dancing on top of the plates on the dining room table, singing songs of Simchat Torah. He was doing hakafot. He was doing hakafot on the dining room table. Rabbi Yaakov had a smile, always had a smile, walked up to the boy, picked him up off the table, and put him down. 2 minutes later, Rabbi Yaakov turns his back. The kid, right up on top of the table, hakafashnia. He was dancing already. He was almost up to Susharim. He was going up and down on the plates. Rabbi Yaakov smiles, picks the boy up off the table, puts him down, and sends him into a different room. The student, the Talmud that was sitting there, he looked at the Rosh Yeshiva and he said, Harav, where's the Chinuch? You didn't say one word to the kid. Tell him, this is not the way to act. What kind of business is this? What type of crazy kid are you? They start giving him labels, ADD, ADHD, blah, 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 blah. He's hanging from the ceiling, he's swinging by the chandelier. Blah. Tell him that this is Zelo HaDerech. Because if you don't tell him now, who knows what's going to be later on? Rabbi Yaakov was listening, he was listening. Rabbi Yaakov says to the Talmud, what does Chinuch mean? What does it mean to be mechanech? What does that mean? Simple. Just a simple understanding. What does it mean? Says Rabbi Yaakov, Chinuch means to be able to teach the child now in his young years so that later on when he faces what he's going to face in life, he'll already know right from wrong. He says Chinuch is only by things that are going to reoccur in life and come back to the boy later on. But one-time occurrences that will not take place when he gets older is not chinuch, and there is no mitzvah to even say one word. He says, I know that he is 4 years old. I don't think that my son, when he becomes an adult, is going to be dancing on the top of tables. He says, so in such a scenario, there's no din of chinuch, and any word I would have said to the boy would have hurt him. It would have hurt him. That's not chinuch. Chinuch is when it comes to something that's not a one-time occurrence. Chinuch is something where, as an example, if you find that a child is lying, that's a good place to say something. Not in a criticizing way, but to emphasize how important it is to say the truth, how people will respect you more, how Hashem's stamp is emet, and how people that speak emet is close to Hashem, whereas people that speak sheker is not close to Hashem. Children can get these concepts. Because if you don't explain it to him now, later on in life, when he's challenged again and again to say the truth or not, he's going to be in his marriage, he's going to be in a workplace, he's going to be in a yeshiva, he's going to be placed in situations whether to say emet or not. So if you straighten him out now, later on, when it reoccurs again and again and again, he'll be mechunach. He'll be guided. There's chinuch. That's when you say something. And even then, you say it in a way that you don't break the child. You just break the midah by explaining how the opposite is so much better tailored to them. But a one-time occurrence, to say something about that, says Rav Yaakov Kaminetsky, that's not chinuch. Don't you dare say a word. You'll end up hurting the kid, and you don't even have a mitzvah to justify. Psh, what a key, huh? What's a wow? What are you sod? What are you sod gadol? Wow. And that's exactly what's going on over here. Says Yaakov Avinu, I wasn't going to say a word to you about switching the beds. That was a one-time issue. That's not chinuch. But only at the end of my life, I have to mention it because the truth is, yeter se'et v'yeter az. You were supposed to get kingship because you're the Bechor. You were supposed to get kehuna. I have to explain the reason why you're not getting kingship and kehuna because of the mistake you made in that situation. Not to criticize, not to chastise, but just explain that this is the reason why. But at the time I didn't say a word because that's not chinuch. That's criticism that breaks people, weighs on people. And I was nervous that even the greatest child of the greatest parents, Reuven, Shifteka, I could have turned him off and he would have ran to Esav. And ladies and gentlemen, please listen to me. If Yaakov Avinu was worried about Reuven, this is the greatest father worried about the greatest kid. Kal v'chomer anachnu. We got to be so careful, especially this generation. Our kids are such sensitive neshamot. They really are. They're not built like us. They're not. I'm telling you straight away, they're so sensitive. They're so fickle. In a certain way, you see it on the kids. And because of that, the littlest thing could tick them off. It's not kedai. But what do you mean, Rabbi? I shall let him walk all over me? No, chas v'shalom. But what do you mean? I told him, how could he do this? And how can't he do this? And how come he's not going to shul? And how come he's not waking up? And how come? And then the kid says, I'm out of here. I'm done. You destroyed me. You sent me off. I'm going to go find my uncle Esav. Nice to meet you. Hasta la vista. I'm telling you, how many kids do we have today like this? We didn't get the message from this Rashi. Yaakov Avinu. Unbelievable. And on this topic, and I just want to say one more nikuda, because I'm hitting this one so hard, because I believe, it'll make life a lot easier for many of us, because we don't have to hear any more of these terrible stories. I heard over once from my Rebbe when I was young. He says a relationship is exactly like a healthy bank account. Again, a healthy relationship with a wife, with a husband, with a child. Relationships are like a healthy bank account. A healthy bank account is an account that you make many deposits and deposits and deposits and deposits, and every now and then you make a withdrawal to take out some money. But a healthy bank account, you have many more deposits as opposed to the one or two few withdrawals. That's what keeps the bank account healthy. If you don't constantly feed that bank account with so many more deposits as opposed to the one or two withdrawals that you take once in a while, if you only have a few pennies in that bank account, when you start withdrawing, you'll end up in the red. The exact same thing is true when it comes to relationships. A good relationship is a relationship like a bank account that has many, many, many deposits of compliments and validation and love and confidence. And if you do that, and you constantly deposit warmth and love and warmkeit and validation and confidence and good words, then once in a while you can make a withdrawal and give a word of criticism, of musar, and they'll listen. Because a healthy bank account can absorb a withdrawal every now and then, and they won't go into withdrawal. But if you don't feed that bank account constant deposits and deposits, and you're not giving this kid compliments and love and warmth, and you're not giving your wife constant validation and warmth and love and compliments, and you expect on the 2 pennies that you put into the account on a compliment that you gave her 12 years ago, you expect to what? To withdraw on that relationship? To withdraw on that account? Immediately you go into overdraft. And immediately you run into the red. And you can see the red on the person's face that you're criticizing. And they're already telling you, buddy, you're in the red with me. You destroyed this bank account. You destroyed this relationship. That's the secret. like a healthy bank account. Let's make a lot of deposits. A lot of deposits into our kids. A lot of deposits into our spouse. A lot of deposits into our Talmidim, into our Talmidot. Build them and stuff them with more cash of compliments and more confidence and more validation and more good words. And then, once in a blue, when you need it, you go and make that withdrawal of few words of criticism, but in a way of corrective musar. That's healthy. That's the way we bring up great children. Wow. Look at Yaakov Avinu. And this is what Moshe Rabbeinu took. Moshe Rabbeinu, look at this, and we're going to see such a deep point now, such a beauty. Moshe Rabbeinu starts giving musar to the Jewish people right before he passes away, because he learned that from Yaakov Avinu. During the lifetime, Moshe Rabbeinu had many challenges. He had many challenges with Klal Yisrael, and he did not give them any musar. Just like Yaakov Avinu did not give his children musar during the lifetime, because he didn't want to turn them off. But when it's time to give musar, when it's time to mechanech them, what did Moshe Rabbeinu do? What did he bring up? Did he bring up the one-time occurrences, like Rav Kaminetsky said? Did he bring up the egel? No, he just hinted to it. The zahav. Did he bring up the meraglim, a one-time occurrence? No, he didn't bring that up either openly. He hinted to it. But what did he bring out in the open as the first message of musar to the Jewish people? The one thing that keeps coming at us again and again and again. There is a din of chinuch. Let's get this straight once and for all. And what is it? El kol b'nei Yisrael. O Yaakov Avinu, he'asvu. The achdut. The shalom, no machloket, no sinat chinam, no baseless hatred. I think this is amazing. Ay, ay, ay. This togetherness in Shamayim creates such an et ratzon that it brings us to the throes of the coming of Mashiach. And the more we can bring this togetherness, the more we can stay away from politics and shtuyot, is the more we can finally really listen to the footsteps of Mashiach, Rabotai. I want to explain to you how far this goes, because right now, not only we're in the 9 days, but at the time of this particular class, we're already 24 hours right before Tisha B'Av, right before Echa. And it's amazing to me that another year went by. And what a year. What a year. Who saw this year coming, really, guys? Who? COVID-19, the riots, Israel, China. What's going on now with China? Who knows where this is going? Borei Olam. Hashem should watch over us and protect us. Rabotai, we're holding now in the moments before one of the biggest days of the year. It's a day of sadness, but it's also a day of closeness where we all come together and we cry with Abba together. And the cry is, Ani lidodi v'dodi li. That's really the cry. This is the preempt of the coming Elul. I'm crying for you, Abba, and Abba is crying for me. We're yearning for each other. We want to come back together again. We want to come back to Eretz Yisrael again. We want to see Abba back in his home. We want the Shekhinah amongst us. Hashem cries for us, where are my children? Oy lahem lebanim, shegalu mishulchan avihem. The famous Gemara in Gimel Amud Aleph in Berachot. Oy lahem lebanim. Woe is to my children. And we say, woe is to Hashem, our God, that we are so far away from and exiled in this terrible galut of Hester Panim. We want a closeness with Hashem. We don't want it Hester anymore. We want to be able to be Nidbak. We want to be Davuk B'Hashem B'Galui. We want to be able to be Davuk B'Shchina. What's the avodah right now? Right now in these 9 days. What's the avodah? The avodah is exactly what's needed to end this. To yearn to get out of here already. To realize this isn't home. to realize that time is up, and this is the last stop of the 42 stops on the train. Like Rav Chaim Volozhin said, in the name of the Chassid, there's going to be a place called America, and that's the last stop of the 42 stops. The Chafetz Chaim said it. Rabbi Chanan Wasserman came to America, and he spoke to the American rabbis, and he said, this is the last stop. This is it. We want home already. We want home. So how do we get out of here? How come this is still dragging on? Because there's still one chip left, one, that they warned us from the beginning. If we could just get this right. He'asfu, el kol b'nei Yisrael. How do you do that? How do you show it? How do you show that you feel for another Jew? How do you show that not only there's no baseless hatred anymore, but there's baseless love? There's no such thing, obviously. You can't. I don't hold of this thing called ahavat chinam. Ahava is not chinam. Ahava takes work. But we're ready for another Yid that we don't even know. Ki ish echad ublev echad. We want to. How do you show ahava to people in these days in a way that we're mekayim the real avodah of the 9 days? Open your hearts and listen to this. The great Arizal, the Arizal Kadosh, only a few nights ago, Motzei Shabbat, was his yahrzeit. It's amazing how I wish I could have been in Israel. Imagine to go to the Arizal in Tzfat. You come down the slope after you jump out of his mikveh. You come over to the Arizal, and there he's buried right next to his Rebbe, the Ramak. Rav Moshe Kodavera, we had a whole class on him only 2 weeks ago. And then right next to him is his brother-in-law, the great Rav Shlomo Alkabetz, the Labal Chadodi, who was the first Rebbe of the Ramak. It's amazing. It's amazing. Amazing who's there, who's buried there. The Arizal was once learning Torah, but be'ayun. He was sitting in the holy city of Tzfat and learning Torah, and suddenly a bat kol, a voice comes out from Shamayim that only he heard, and the voice said, Reb Yitzchak Luria, that was the Ari's name, pick yourself up quickly and remove yourself from this city. The city is about to be destroyed. There's a gzeran Shamayim from Mita, the whole city. The Ari said, what? Ir Tzfat? Ir shel Kabbalah? Shel Torah? Shel Tzadikim? What? Such a city? There's a gzeran Shamayim from Mita, the whole city? As a true leader, the Ari stood up and said, no. A leader doesn't ban his sheep. He doesn't just run off and say, okay, guys, good luck. That's not what leaders do. A leader stands, and he's the last guy to leave, and he fights for his people, and he goes down with the ship, and he goes down with his sheep. That's what Rabbi Chanan Wasserman told the rabbis. The rabbis in New York in 1939, they told him, don't go back. We know what's coming. Don't go back. And Rabbi Chanan told them, I know what's coming. But I cannot leave my Talmidim alone. I have to go back. I'm going to die with them. Because the sheep need their shepherd. What type of Rebbe is not with his Talmidim at the time that they need him? It's unbelievable. The Gedolim we had is unbelievable. What we once had is unbelievable. Arizal, he was sent to Shamayim. I'm not leaving. Why is this Gezerah in the city? How's it possible? Such an illustrious city, Gezerah of death. Shamayim was Megale Terari, that there's a Jew, Tzaddik, who lives in the north part of Tzfat. And everyone forgot about this guy. No one helped him. No one fed him. And right now he's rolling on the floor in his house in pain of hunger. And he's dying of hunger, him and his children. Because no one helped him, because they forgot about the aniyim of the city, there's a gzeirah of mitah in the entire city. The Arizal quickly called his Talmidim, and he told them, run to the marketplace, buy a bunch of loaf of bread, buy cheese and meat and milk and vegetables and everything you can get your hands on, and go to the house of this man, Reb Yaakov El Taritz. That was his name. Yaakov El Taritz. He's a tzaddik, ani marud, and he's dying from hunger, and we forgot about him. The city forgot about him. The Askanim forgot about him. The Dayanim forgot about him. Quickly run, save his life. and maybe we can save the city. So they run up to the north of Tzfat, and they push through the door of Yaakov el Taritz, and sure enough, they see a man on the floor holding his stomach in pain. His children in the other room, and they're emaciated. Their faces are pale. They quickly come and they revive the children. They give the children to drink, and they give them warm and then to eat little by little, small bites. And they nurture the children back to health. And then Rabbi Yaakov el Taritz the same. They hydrated him, and they gave him food, and they got him on his feet. And after hours, they turned to Rabbi Yaakov el Taritz with the request of the Arizal, their Rebbe. He says, now that we saved your life, we saved your children, and from this day on, we will be mefarnes you. You'll never worry about food again. We'll never forget about you. Please, there's a exile from Shamayim on the entire city. Please, daven to Hashem. Beg him that he should take the exile away. Should save the city of Tzfat. Rabbi Yaakov el Taritz, he walks up to the wall and he puts two hands on his wall in his living room. And he starts to scream, Abba! Yaakov el Taritz calling you. They just remembered me. Yes, they forgot about me. Yes, they forgot about my children. They left us to die. You know, sometimes when people are suffering, although they don't mean it, but they're in so much pain that they look out at the world, and to them, everyone is ki'ilu against them. Because of their pain, it's like they're wearing glasses of shachor. So everything they see is black, even the good people. Because why didn't you help me? What do you mean? I didn't even know you had a problem. If I would have known you had a problem, of course I would have helped you. No! I'm in pain. You should have known. I had this a lot. As a rabbi, I had this a lot. People, Tanot, how come you didn't visit me? How come you didn't help me? I said, I didn't know you were even in a problem. I didn't even know. Just recently, somebody in the community, his wife passed away. I was in Lakewood. No one told me. And then word comes back to me from someone who went to Menachem Avel. He says, how come Rabbi Duvi didn't come to be Menachem Avel? He says, I don't think the rabbi even knows that she passed away. He said, what? How's that possible? Everybody knows she passed away. It's Kilu in his head. Everybody knows. So where are you? Meanwhile, I had no clue. The guy called me and says, Rabbi, listen. I said, oh my gosh. I had no clue. Quickly, I got on the phone from Lakewood and called the guy on the spot to the Avelut. Menachem him on the phone, and then the next day went in because I know the phone call wasn't going to do it. It's unbelievable. When people are hurting, you have to be very careful. Comes Yaakov el Taritz, puts his hands on the wall and screams, Abba! Yaakov el Taritz. They forgot me, but now they remembered me. Now they took care of me. Now they took care of my children. Please remember them now, Litova. Forgive them. Abolish the Gzeran Shamayim and save the city. Just then, he didn't finish speaking. Suddenly, thunder and lightning and rain. Such a storm. I don't know if you guys were ever in Tzfat when it rains. I was there a few years ago in January, right? Because that's the winter months. I was in Tzfat, going down to the Arizal's mikveh, me and Yitzchak Zev. The rain was so intense that the water coming down the steps looked like Niagara Falls. I'm telling you, it was like oceans. We had to hold on to the banisters. I told Yitzchak Zev, I said, don't let go, but we're not turning back. We're going to make it. We're going to get there one way or another. We're not, we came this far. Poor kid, what I did to that kid. Anyways. It was raining, but pouring, pour raining. And then finally, after 10 minutes, the lightning, the thunder, the rain stopped. They left the house, they went back to the Arizal, and the Arizal had a big smile. And he said, Baruch Hashem, we remembered the Jew that we forgot. The whole city is saved. The Gzerah is batel. And he takes their hands and he brings them outside and the Arizal shows them, look, do you see in the sky there's like a very ominous black cloud that's going up off the city up to Shamayim, that was the Gezerah. And it's now lifted, mamash, physically lifted. He was showing them, that's it, right there. Look, we're saved. Because we forgot one Jew. Somebody was broken. Somebody was suffering. Somebody was screaming, and we didn't hear him. And Hashem wants to know why. And the avodah of these days, of the 9 days, is to look, to find the people that we forgot about. The people that are suffering. There's so many people suffering. There's so many people suffering. So many people still didn't get over their losses from COVID yet. Mothers, fathers that passed away. Rabbis that passed away. That ran kihilot shlemot. Rabbis that had students that suddenly disappeared. With no way of seeing this come. So many families that are still broken. And these are the families we know. And what about the families in Israel? And what about the almanot? What about the yitomim? COVID, we all remember quarantine. These people, they couldn't go to other people if they wanted to. They were stuck at home alone, without a father, without someone as a backbone or words of encouragement. It's amazing to me. If you want to talk about the avodah of the 9 days, the avodah is to remember the forgotten people of Klal Yisrael that are in pain and go out there and raise their spirits. And when you do that, you just raise the spirit of the entire Jewish people. I just want to end off and tell you something beautiful. I was recently speaking to a guy in Israel who this guy is one of those famous party planners, religious guy, who takes care of the community when they go to Israel on the big bar mitzvahs. So they make a beautiful bar mitzvah, but today it became very common that when families of our community go to Israel, so not only do they do the bar mitzvah with their own son, but they'll do one day on the trip where they do a bar mitzvah for orphans together with their son as well. It's a beautiful thing, really, something, beautiful. One of the community gems. This has our community signature on it. So they make the bar mitzvah for their son together with orphans. And they make a whole big party, and it's a whole seudan, and the almanot come, and the families come, and they bring presents to the boy, and they give the boy tefillin. I mean, it's unbelievable. So this guy was telling me, he says, I feel really bad that this year there were many, many good families that were supposed to make bar mitzvahs this summer in Israel. Many families that were close to me. I know the Srors, many families, good family, great families. They were supposed to make bar mitzvahs. And now that Corona came, all those bar mitzvahs that were supposed to make bar mitzvahs for orphans as well, now that the bar mitzvah was canceled, they're not coming. So all the bar mitzvah for the orphans were canceled as well. It's all off. He says, I can't believe it. I feel so bad. These people, he tells me, these people were so looking forward to not only making the bar mitzvah for their kid, but for the orphans, and now they're not going to get to do it. Now, this guy in his conversation was saying he feels bad for the people in America. That's not what I heard. I heard that there are at least 10 to 15 orphan kids in Israel that were waiting for American families to come, make a bar mitzvah that would finally give them a moment of happiness, because they don't have a father. Buy them a pair of tefillin, be mesameach the yitomim with their friends and family, and now they don't have nothing. No bar mitzvah the yitomim, no tefillin, no seudah, no simcha. What do they have? Quarantine. That's it. I said, what? How could that be? How could we just let that go? You want to talk about forgetting about the lost people of Klal Yisrael who are in suffering and pain and no one remembers them to help them? Should we at least start with the orphans? The almanot of Klal Yisrael, the ones that don't have someone fighting for them, helping them, supporting them, no father at home, no father figure. So 2 Sundays ago, Hashem should bless my consuegros, the Mizrahi family, beautiful people. So Morris, Musi Mizrahi, comes to me and he says to me, listen, Rabbi, we're making the pidyon. Beautiful, what they did. Beautiful party. They made a pidyon for their son's first baby boy. And they said, we're going to raffle off the coins. And 5 coins, 5 different tzedakot. The Kohen was the great Rabbi Dweck. I love Rabbi Dweck from Deal. He stood up. He's the rabbi of the Eatontown Shul. He made beautiful announcements about how significant the selling of the coin is. And then the first coin went to his chesed fund, and then another coin went to this beautiful tzedakah, and another coin went to different tzedakah. And my consuegro, Musi Mizrahi, says, Rabbi, I want you to raffle off this coin for tzedakah of your cause. And I stood up and I said to the people, ladies and gentlemen, this is the time to make a difference in the life of 10 boys. You can be the father that they don't have. You can get them a pair of tefillin. You can be Mesameach Yitomim in Eretz Yisrael and remember the forgotten people in Klal Yisrael that are suffering. There's no bigger avodah today than to raise the spirits of the forgotten people in Klal Yisrael that are in pain and suffering. And Hashem says, if you remember them, I will never forget you, because that's the real tikkun of Sinat Chinam. That's the real tikkun. The real tikkun. To find the Yaakov El Taritz of your neighborhood, of your generation, and go out there and raise their life, raise their spirits. Show them that no one forgot about them, but that we do care and we love them and the warmth is there. And then build them up with the deposits and deposits of confidence and validation and give them all the words that they need to feel like a human being and to feel that they matter. And then we go out and we turn to Borei Olam and say, Abba, 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 we didn't forget about our brothers and sisters. Klal Yisrael is taken care of. We're together, be'achdut, he'asfu, el kol b'nei Yisrael. I got up and told the people, please, we're about to start the 3 weeks, the 9 days. Let's not forget about these kids that are suffering, that they were teased, they had a bar mitzvah coming, they had a pair of tefillin, they had people who were going to misameach them and dance with them and make a party. Let's make a party for them. In Israel. We can't be there, but let's make a party for them. I have it with Yad Eliezer. We have the 10 boys. And Baruch Hashem, I'm telling you, there's no one like our people. The bids, bli ayin hara, the amazing, amazing monies that came through. We were able to save these 10 boys. They weren't forgotten. And then when I got a hold of the organization, Yad Eliezer, and I sent them over the money, I said, guys, tell me what we can do for Klal Yisrael. And they said, Rabbi Duvi, you have no idea the pain that's going on in Israel now. The matzav kalkali is ala panim. The poverty is beyond words. The people, their morale is still okay, but there's so many suffering people. And specifically in the area of the almanot and yitomim. You want to be mesameach almanot yitomim? Let's start a program to be mesameach almanot yitomim. We'll give you another 10 bar mitzvah boys who you don't know about, who desperately need tefillin, who desperately need a little bit of a seudah, a recognition. Let's go out there and rock their world. Let's go out there and remember the forgotten orphans of Klal Yisrael, the forgotten widows, the forgotten avrechim, tzaddikim that learn Torah all day and that are so poor and so suffering in a COVID environment in Israel and here in America and even our backyard. You don't have to look far. But look for them, because that's the avodah now. Because the more broken souls that we show that we didn't forget, we remember them, build them, raise them up, is the moment that Hashem says, you remembered my kids, I'll remember you forever. And now it's time that I remember Klal Yisrael for the great Geulah Shalema. Rabotai, I'm looking forward to see you tomorrow night. If Mashiach doesn't come, we'll be here live at 9:45 on the big Tisha B'Av speech. Come and cry with us. But in those tears, it'll be also happiness, because in the judgment, there's always an underlying veil of mercy that Klal Yisrael is going to be zocheh very soon to Geulah Gidolah mitoch tremendous rachmanut. Amen ken yiratzon. Have a good night.